because I wasn't moving. I was eating Oreos and pizza, and like I was not doing the correct things for healing. And I was out for about a month, like not being able to move at all. And what ended up happening is that at the end of that month, I couldn't move my neck.
Hello and welcome to The Secret of My Success, where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling life. I am your host, Erin Curran. If you have not already, please subscribe to our channel. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please give us a like. So today I am speaking with Dr. David Lopez Robles. He is a chiropractic doctor. David was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. After 12 years as a waiter, he suffered a physically debilitating injury, and he was actually bedridden for about a month and a half. After having all of these pain issues and being unable to work, he tried everything under the sun. He went to a chiropractor, and he found not only the solution to relieving his pain, but he also found his calling. He is passionate about sharing the principles of health, healing, well-being, and he works diligently to empower his patients and the community to be the best expression of themselves. Please help me welcome Dr. David Lopez Robles. So today I am with Dr. David Lopez Robles. David, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to have you in the studio. I've known you, I guess we've known each other for almost 4 years now.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
You are like, I have never had a chiropractor quite like you. And I really I love the experience with everyone at your office and everything that you've been able to do and that we've been able to co-create. So, just a shout out to anybody who's looking for a chiropractor.
Thank you. Thank you.
So normally what I do is I ask my guest to share some sort of a turning point to get us started. Where would you like to start?
Well, as far as my turning point in my life, I always kind of talk a lot about what brought me to chiropractic. There's been so many turning points in my life, like everybody's life, right? And it's important to kind of, as you get older, always kind of reminisce and look back at these because it really tells the story. It tells your story, and it allows you to see where you've been and where you're gonna go. I find that very often we just get into the habit of just living and going through the scenes and like, one thing the other day, and before you know it, your life just kind of passed away. So it's important to kind of reminisce, but not stay in that spot, right? Throughout my life, that's something that I struggled with, especially when we talk about boundaries and like where kind of people lay. I was always kind of in the past, kind of looking at the past, like what happened in the past of my life kind of determine who I was today. And it's important to kind of look at that, but not to stay on that. And at some points in my life, I was staying on that. I think my wife is one of those people that actually helped me realize that, and some mentors as well. But going to the story, I was a waiter for about 12 years in my career. I love being a waiter. It was a great career. You make a lot of money. It's really fun. You make a lot of good friends. It's really nice. That's actually where I met my wife as well. And being a waiter is just a fun task, right? Now that comes with its challenges. And throughout my life, I was always a little bit heavy set, especially when I started in the restaurant business, and I was about 300 pounds. And going through, wanting to be more in relationships with people, wanted to date, and all that stuff. I started to work out. Somebody broke my heart, and that just kind of was a turning point in my life to kind of look for what I was demanding from others, right? I want my partner to be somebody that's healthy, that's happy, that's looking to get healthy. So I needed to do that myself in order to get that person that I really wanted to be with. So um, I started getting training. I started working out. And I lost about, I don't know, 100 something pounds, something like that, throughout the process. So I got pretty fit, but I did not do the correct exercises for my body. I was just kind of following up with Men's Health and just kind of like weightlifting. I had a friend that kind of went to the gym and he kind of taught me some things, but it's not a personal trainer, nothing like that. So, fast forward through that whole experience, yeah, I lost weight, I got into shape, I started dating, I started kind of doing all these things, but I wasn't really taking care of my health because often you think, or I used to think that, all right, if I just want to get healthy, I just need to work out, right? But it wasn't just working out. You really have to look at your nutrition. You really have to look at your sleeping. You need to do the correct exercises, and I wasn't doing that. So fast forward through that whole experience, not just the working out, but also the heavy part of my work, which was being a waiter. Carrying a lot of plates, bending over in weird areas, carrying a lot of things, living nights and sleeping mornings, um, going out to hang out after you work and getting home at 4 after a night of binge drinking and having fun with your friends. It's only to repeat it next day with workout, go to work, go drinking, and do it all over again. So it created an unstable environment in my body, which led to injury. I was working. At that point, I wasn't a waiter. I had transitioned from restaurants. I got into like more fine dining restaurants, and I was started as a busser, which still made more money than what I made as a waiter in the other restaurant. And one day, it was a slow day. I wanted to make more money, so my partner, I sent him home because it was going to be slow. So he left, and I just was going to work on my own. And then it got like super slammed. So I had to kind of carry the whole thing. And I went to move a table, and again, it was a moving a table very much like what I do every day. Very simple. It's not like I lifted that table heavy. I was just kind of adjusting it a little bit, and I felt an insane sharp pain in my low back that radiated down both legs. It was really, really bad. I told the manager at that point, it's like, wow, this just kind of happened. I tried calling my colleague again. Hey, listen, I just got messed up. Can you come back? He didn't answer, obviously, because he had plans and he wanted to leave. So at that point, I have to make a decision. Am I going to stay here or am I going to go? My mom always told me you always want to do things right at work, right? Even if you're not happy at work, even if you're not, even if you want to quit, even if you hate your boss, right? Always leave the door open, always end well. So I always took that to heart. I still do. And wherever I'm at in anything, I always try to do my best. So at that point, because it was my word, I said, you know what? I'm just going to plow through this and I'm going to finish off this shift. That created more problems because it's heavy work, and we got really slammed. At the end of that day, I told the manager, like, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to get checked tomorrow, but I'll keep you updated. When I got into the car, I just laid there for like 30 minutes because it was like electricity going down my legs. It was really, really sharp. I don't think I could have like I was even considering calling my mom to pick me up because I didn't know if I could drive.
Wow.
Somehow I made it work and I drove home. When I got home, it was just like horrible because at that point you're warm, and as you cool down, you really start feeling it. And then the next day, I could barely move. She helped me up and got me into the hospital. They did x rays, they did MRIs, they did all this stuff. They looked at me and they said, "Listen, you probably tweaked it a little bit. Not, we don't see anything really severe. Uh, take this medication, put this ointment on, and most importantly, rest. Don't move. Don't do anything." So at that point, I'm going through workers' comp. And I went through the my boss and said, "Listen, this is kind of what's happening." They gave me the whole thing. They processed all that stuff, and I was out for about a month, like not being able to move at all. It wasn't getting any better, and after that month, because I wasn't moving, and again at this point, I don't know what I know now about health. I was eating Oreos and pizza, and like I was not doing the correct things for healing. And what ended up happening is that at the end of that month, I couldn't move my neck. It created such a stiffness in my spine and in my body because I could not get comfortable. I could not heal. I was just sitting in bed, watching movies, eating poor food, not hydrating appropriately, and taking meds. And that created a worse environment. After that first month, I have like another month with workers' comp, right? So, because I'm not working, so I don't have money to pay rent and do all these things, right? The workers' comp is kind of covering for me, but at the end of that month, I had to go back to work because it's running out. So, at that point, I'm just kind of desperate. I went to several doctors trying to see what kind of happened. And my mom, I think, was the one that told me, it's like, listen, why don't you try a chiropractor or something like that? Let's see, if that works, right? So I kind of like looked around. I knew there was a chiropractor close to my dad's house. And I just decided to give him a call, see if this works, right? You know, so at that point, when I get to the chiropractor, it's been a month and a half, something like that. I walking literally like I cannot move my neck. If I had to turn my head, I would have to kind of like turn my whole body to kind of look at you. Like it was like I could not turn. So I go, they did the assessment, all that stuff, and got me adjusted. With just one adjustment, I was actually able to move my neck. Right. There were still a lot of things going on, but I felt a lot better. I felt like an immediate release because I was just so crammed up. Um, so I continued with the care, and throughout the next couple of weeks, I felt a lot better. There were still some remnant things in there, but I felt like I was in my path to be able to go back to work. So I told my bosses, blah blah blah, all that stuff. I remained on the chiropractic care, and then I went back to work. Right. Obviously, after that, that was a big change, you know, but there was always kind of like a remnant of the injury, right? Because like most people do, when you feel good, then you stop taking care of yourself, and so I went back to work, started doing the same things I was doing before, and lo and behold, low back pain came back. It wasn't as bad, obviously. From that experience, I could still kind of work. I didn't have to go to workers' comp, but it was like the remnant. So I went to another chiropractor, and maybe he'll help. Oh, they do laser, they do all this other stuff. Let's see if that's the secret recipe. I improved. I stopped going. Same thing happened. So I went to another chiropractor, and I went to several chiropractors trying to get where the magic sauce was, until I got to a chiropractor that told me, "Listen, bro, like this is a problem. You're not taking care of your health. You are doing this, and this is helping you get out of like the initial intensive care, like the initial pain that you're having." But you're not following up with maintaining the health that you need, and you're putting too much stress on your body. And they showed me kind of like the wave of how you heal and all these things. So it was with that chiropractor that then I started getting interested in healing. Right, I was never a medical science or anything like that in my life. My bachelor's was in Hispanic studies and philosophy.
Oh, wow.
So I was a humanities guy, right? I was words. And so I never thought to be a doctor. I never thought I'd get into sciences. I was terrible at math always. So I never really thought that chiropractic or any healing profession was for me. And then, fast forward to kind of after, I'm in my relationship with my wife. We've been together for a couple of years, and we went ahead and, we needed to move forward in our lives. And it's not that being a waiter is not a great career, but it's not the career that I wanted to have. right? I wanted to do something different. I wanted to become a professional in a field. So there's a saying in there's this song by Rubén Blades that they say in Spanish. It's like, si naciste pa martillo, del cielo te caen los clavos, which means like if you were born to be a hammer, nails are going to fall from the sky, right? Meaning like if you're born to do something, it's going to happen, right? So I got that as a, well, my dad's a lawyer, my sister's a lawyer. I can out litigate them, so maybe I should be a lawyer. But I didn't really want to be a lawyer. But let's kind of get in. Maybe this is the path, right? I knew that I needed to move forward because I felt a little stuck at that point. And so I prepared to take all the tests and all these things. And one day I walk into my dad's apartment, and the next day I gotta pay the test so that I can go take the LSAT test to become a lawyer. And we did Monday dinners with my dad. So that day he brought a couple of lawyer friends, and they put a lawyer movie with George Clooney, whatever it was, right? And everything in my mind was just thinking about that test that I got to pay tomorrow, right? Making this decision. And I saw that movie, and I just felt absolutely miserable. I felt miserable. I saw the movie. They were all super interested, and I hated it. So we leave, and I talk to my wife, and she says, like, so what's wrong with you? I can feel like you're, it's like, man, like, like after being today, I just realized, like, I don't want to be a lawyer. I really don't want to do this. Like, I know I have to pay that. I've been studying for it. I hate it. I don't want to do it. And I was about to cry. I was like really distressed. And she said, well, okay, well, let's take a minute. You don't have to be a lawyer if you don't want to. In fact, if you don't want to, this is the least that you should do. But what I want you to think about is, what do you want to do? Like, really think about it. Like, and at that point, I had a friend that was trying to get into medical school. So we were always kind of talking about the healing, and he has struggled with getting into medical school. So he took the test a couple of times. So we would like struggle. We were struggling at the same time, same age. Like we were all kind of going through the same things. And when she asked me, like, really, like, look, like, what do you want to do? And you know what, man, I really would like to kind of like help people. So I would really like to do something like healing. I see that my friend is kind of like doing like the healing art side. That sounds to me like something that's more, but I'll never be a doctor because I'm not a sciencey guy. So I can never do that. And she's like, well, why do you want to be a doctor? Like, meaning a medical doctor. You don't go to the medical doctor. You go to the chiropractor. So why don't you become a chiropractor? And I'm like, well, because it's the same thing. It's, you still have to do the sciences and all this stuff. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess so. And she's like, well, don't guess, find out. Right. So I said, you know what? Let me check. And that very night, I went home, Googled, what does it take to become a chiropractor? And I looked at the curriculum. And at that point, I had been going to college for a while. I probably have two bachelors when it comes to credits because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I jumped from one thing to the other thing to the other thing. I always kept studying. It's just it never amounted to anything, right? I mean, I could be a teacher. But at that point, I looked at the curriculum and I looked at the classes, and I felt comfortable taking those classes. And yeah, there was calculus and chemistry and all that stuff. But I mean, I knew that was going to be in there. So I said, okay, well, there's just a couple of classes. I think I can manage this. So let's go ahead and find out. So I just started doing the prerequisites, found the college that I ended up going, which is Life University, in my college campus in Puerto Rico. They were like doing a thing, and they pretty much like they invite you to dinner. You do the dinner. They explain everything about chiropractic, and then the other thing that they do is they actually fly you down there so you can check the campus. They pay for your food, for your stay. So if you give a Puerto Rican something free, they're going to take it 100% of the time. So my wife was there with me in the meeting, and I told her, well, listen, like, I'm really interested in this. It was in Atlanta. I was really going for Florida because Puerto Ricans love Florida. I think they're like more obsessed about Florida than Floridians. Like, my mom calls me with everything that's happening in Florida. I mean, like, where do you hear this? It's like, I don't know. They get a direct feed in Puerto Rico from that. But then, like, I found this place, Atlanta. I'm like, Atlanta, really? Well, let's check it out. Um, and what I told my wife is like, listen, in order for them to pay for your ticket, why don't you apply as well? So, you apply and they pay for the whole trip, and we take a free trip to Atlanta. We check out the aquarium and the Coca Cola Museum and all that stuff. And, and then you can look for, because she wanted to do law. So then you can look for your college over there. We can try to find place and all that stuff. So we flew to Atlanta. It was a great event. And during this event, they actually put you through some ropes courses and some personal growth type of things. And then so we did that. It's kind of like a prerequisite for them to pay for everything. It's not that they're going to pay for the trip and then you're going to go hang out, and you go and you got to do all these things. So we went through that whole process, and then we went through the process of her seeing all the other campuses. And in here, it was all about purpose. It was about the purpose of you becoming a great chiropractor, the purpose of you becoming the person that you want to become, the professional you wanted to become, which is what we were looking for. We went to the other campus, and then it was all about sports and the sports teams and like the parties that you're going to be able to do. And we're like, this kind of sucks. This is really
Doesn't fit.
cool.
Yeah.
So I was already sold. I was going to do it. I made the decision at that moment to become a chiropractor and go to school there. And the last day, Elaine's like, we're sitting down and we're getting like the last talk from the president. And she looks at me and she's like, you know what? I don't think I want to be a lawyer. I think I want to be a chiropractor.
Wow.
It's like, well, that's perfect. Then listen, we all jumped into the thing and became chiropractors together. And we moved down to Atlanta, went through school together. It was a great experience. And that's actually what brought us to become chiropractors.
That's
So in
amazing.
that whole story, I know that I went a little long, but in that whole story, there was a couple of turning points
Yeah.
in my life. There was a couple, and when we look at our lives, there's just so many. I could go back further in a lot of talking points as well. But
Well, I think any of us, like you say, we have many different forks in the road. And I really have always loved your story of how you got to be a chiropractor because it's so practical and it's so obvious. Because, like you say, if you're born to be a hammer, nails will fall from the sky. I've never heard that expression. That's really cool. And it's like I believe that each of us has some sort of a calling, and if you ignore it, it's not going to go away. It's still going to keep scratching. You might get really good at ignoring it,
yeah.
but then that just either becomes your, self-medicating, whether it's drugs or alcohol or food or shopping or whatever. But you're in these downward spirals where all of that stuff is just empty until you really start to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love is, you went to the chiropractor, how many different chiropractors to try and fix it before one guy sat you down and was like, "Look, dude, like, I get it." Cuz like you give all of us the exercises and
Mm-hmm.
we come in and you're like, "Are we doing the exercises?" And you can already tell what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes sometimes like somebody saying, "Look, I'm checking in on you and you're here for a reason, and this is what it's going to take to get where you want to go."
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like your entire chiropractic journey was just a series of, okay, so you hurt your lower back, and the next thing you know, instead of becoming an attorney, you're becoming a chiropractor. I believe there are no mistakes in life. So the way the universe is going to get you from here to there is, well, we're going to tweak his back when he moves a table. And the next thing, how many years did it take for you to get from that table to that campus?
About 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
give or take.
So, the one thing that most people see, especially in the age of Instagram, is they think all of a sudden somebody is in Abu Dhabi or, Dubai or, driving a Ferrari, and it happened overnight. And it rarely, if ever, happens that way. If it does happen that way, the question I'm asking is, what price did they pay to get there?
Yeah.
'Cause there's a price.
Mm-hmm.
So Are you doing it in a way where you're actually evolving through a journey, or are you trying to find the shortcut?
Well, originally I was trying to find the shortcut.
Right.
That's what continued to bring me into that place, right? And again, you hit in the nail. Like those are the nails, right? The low back pain is the nails. The depression that I felt when I saw that movie was a nail, right? They're gonna, because I was born to be a chiropractor. I thought I was born to be a lawyer, and I made a lot of logical reasoning to get there. But very often, or more likely, the logical reasoning is not the right one, or there's an error there. Because we lie to ourselves, because we convince ourselves of things, and we often use logic. Logic really comes from what you've learned, so it's inherent in the information that is given to you, right? And you can be the smartest person in the world, but you're still affected by it. So, something as simple as a song telling me the story and me grabbing that piece of the song, because the song is a lot about it. Like it's a very popular like salsa song. Um, so it's about like the slums in New York and all this stuff. But like that part always kind of stuck by me, and it created a big belief that then after that, it's not that I don't believe in it anymore, because I could see how it's true, but how I was receiving it was really the big difference. And we do that too often. We convince ourselves of things. We listen to authority figures, experts in subjects, and we just take it, you know, at the face value. We take it as a truth and we believe it. And then it creates perhaps an aberrant belief system in ourselves.
Yeah.
It's I think it's important, and I always kind of, and I think I told you when we were doing our presentation at our office, it's like I always say, like, I'm in a position of power when I'm presenting, so like please take it with a grain of salt. It's not don't believe me, it's take everything with a grain of salt, because I'm a position of authority, but another person is as well in their field. And I always try at this point in my life to say, what are they really trying to say, opposed to saying, I just believe whatever they say because they're experts.
Right. Well, what I loved about what you did in the presentation, and I hope that little girl doesn't create a belief around it,
Mm-hmm.
but you had two circles on the screen, blue circles, identical size, and you said one of the circles is bigger, which one? And how old is she? 9,
Yeah, about.
something around there.
Yeah,
And her hand shoots up and she
yeah,
says, the one on the right. And all of us were thinking it because
yeah,
you told us,
yeah.
and you're like, guess what? I just lied to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're both the same size.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is. It's not that facts are made up, and it's not that truth isn't truth, but it is that we do view the world differently, and each of us is cut from just a little bit different cloth with a different flavor or a different path.
Mm-hmm.
And so I personally believe that it's really good to listen to what people have to say and then let it sit in my heart to see how it fits for me, because I'm receiving the message always for some sort of a purpose. Like I wouldn't be hearing it if I didn't need to,
Even if I don't like it.
but it doesn't always mean what I initially think it means, because I somebody once gave a definition of transformation, and they said, if you're really trying to create transformation in your life, consider that you have no idea what you're going to look like on the other side. And if you have no idea what you're going to look like on the other side, how the hell do you plan for that?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, because you can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes walking in faith is just quietly listening to the signs, and you might feel a slight pull to the right a little bit more than to the left, and you got to trust that that's just it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do see things like, I feel depressed as I'm watching this movie with my father's friends, I might want to dig into that a little bit more because it's not always the bright neon sign.
Hmm. It's usually the other one, the one you can't quite see.
Yep. Yeah, because those little guidance system voices are often whispers.
Mhm.
They make themselves known in ways where it's just unmistakable. And then the devil or the distraction is over in the corner screaming, trying to get attention.
Well, on that regard, it's the loudest. The distraction is usually the loudest, and that's why I find a lot of the community struggle with this because it's so loud. That's why I struggle with it because it's so loud. And I always had an inquisitive mind growing up as a child. Um, but that inquisitiveness created a kind of rigid belief, you know, logic. You know, I took a lot of philosophy, so I started with the logic and the numbers and the X, Y, and C's, and it's so
Prove it.
yeah. Let's prove it. I need the proof, and the proof is here, right? Well, proof is important, but there's also the error in all those proofs, um, and it has to make sense to you.
Yeah.
But like that's usually the loudest thing. That's usually the loudest thing, and it's really hard for people to tune into the quiet voices that are saying follow your intuition, right? It's almost like letting yourself get carried by the river, right? It's almost like, kind of, what's that called when you float on a down the river tubing,
Yeah.
right? Opposed to like swimming against the current. If you're going to swim against the current, it's you're going to get tired.
Yeah.
And I feel like many of us, like I was originally, and in some cases I still do, right? I gotta think that I'm still doing it because I'm a human being. We tend to run against the currents because we have like goals or beliefs of who we got to become, and I gotta have things be perfect before I do anything, and nobody's exempt. Even the people that have done the work, even the people that have taken all the seminars or have gone through college and universities and doctorate programs, and it, we're all subject to it. Even if we have perhaps a little bit more um, information or knowledge, we don't always have the wisdom, and that's really what I always try to strive for, is this achieving a greater sense of wisdom. But wisdom you often comes from not trying to get it, is allowing the universe or the river to kind of take you there, understanding where the things land and going for it. I recently had a situation where I just moved, and I could tell that there was a little bit of resistance and purchasing a new home and all these things, and that created, or I believe it created, issues with the move, which turned into a difficult, not so pleasant moving experience when you're getting a new home, or just want the comfort and excitement of it. I got to bring people in to fix things and blah 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 blah. But it's something that you create. It's something you create by resisting the natural change that you're meant to go through, right? And not allowing for that to kind of happen. So we gotta get hit in the bum often to kind of wake up, and it happens to everybody, and it's not gonna stop. I feel like I'm gonna be 80, and my wife is gonna be telling me, "You do this all the time. You've been doing it since you're like 20. Like, stop it." You know. But that's okay. That's being a human being. We this striving to be perfect, because we are afraid of who we really are. It's something that we have to kind of like disallow and just kind of tune in more to that flow. And my wife is one of those people that are like important in that regard in my life, that helped me and led me to get there. Like I always said, I was more of the left brain logical type of person, even though I wasn't great at math. Um, but through her experience is how I saw it. because I would see that she was very different from me in that regard. I was always very stuck to like the way that things are, and blah, 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 blah. And I would see that she is very erratic. Is how I saw it. Like, no, like whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. I'm just gonna let that happen. It's like, how can you do that, right? Well, then I saw it worked, and it continued to.
And just to be clear, it's not that you're advocating not planning or not working or any of those things, because like what happened when The Secret came out is people thought, oh yeah, sure, I'm just going to sit in my chair and pretend I'm driving a Ferrari and tomorrow it's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, there's always some sort of an energetic investment.
Mm-hmm.
There's some exchange. You don't get something for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Had a conversation yesterday with somebody. We were talking about Buddhism, and I was saying Buddhism isn't magic. And she was like, "Oh, I very much believe in magic, this, that, and the other." And I'm like, "Okay, so most people think magic is something for nothing. Even if you say you're a magician or you're a witch, there's an investment, whether you're spending your days doing incantations, writing lines. I mean, you are putting something in to get something out. Most Western minds, like people who really don't focus on the law of attraction or really understand what we're talking about, think, oh, I just get to poof and it comes. No, what you might see as magic in my life, how come she's always so lucky? How come he always gets his way? Why does it always seem to work out for her?
Mm-hmm.
It's because we're not just creating in that physical nail hammer kind of a realm. It's also doing the visualizations, really focusing in on what's at the center. I love when you were looking at the School of Chiropractic and the law school, just the way they were framing things was landing for you so differently. This one's about purpose and this one's about play. And play isn't really what I'm feeling. Like purpose is what I'm feeling. Purpose is what I'm driven for. You could have gone to both schools, invested the same amount of work, and gotten completely different results, been absolutely miserable, maybe gained the weight back, continue to have back problems, and your life would have gone a certain way. But here, when you listen to that whisper and then you take action that is in alignment with that path, because it's like you say, I think very often because of the family that we're raised in or the culture that we grew up around, the teachers that we had, the political, religion, philosophical, the landscape that we grow up in, we grow up to think that life has to look a certain way. And when we try to step outside of that, and I'm the oldest of 2 and the middle of 7 as far as my siblings, because, with steps and halves and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who is not married, doesn't have kids, doesn't own a home, hasn't stayed at my same job forever. Like, every time I go for holidays, they're always kinda looking at me going, "Well, what's she's gonna be working on this time?"
Mm-hmm.
And what I see is the path that I've been on for 20 years might look chaotic and scattered to somebody who really doesn't get it, but it really is. I'm going to the buffet and I'm trying a different dish each time I go back. And through that, I've learned so much about myself that I couldn't see because I was supposed to be go into accounting and just do the job and be a certified and a public and a this and a that. And it's like none of that shit was ever for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm the one, I've got the Buddha and the waterfall. I might be doing accounting, but I've got my hands in IT and in the vision and in HR and in so many different things because I can't sit there and just do numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how did your father react when you told him that you weren't gonna be an attorney? How was your family around your choice to change direction?
So that's a little different. I was always a little different in that regard. So perhaps I was like you in that sense that like I don't think they at that point in my life expected me to be a lawyer or anything like that. So backtracking a little bit, as a teenager, I was a big punk rocker, right? So spikes, mohawks, chains, just like at face value, it shows perhaps a lack of, I don't want to say purpose, a lack of like organization, which like a lot of people view as he's just lost, right? And I'm not saying that I wasn't at one point in my life. Definitely through my teenage years, I suffered from clinical depression and different things. That's not what brings me into being a punk rocker or anything like that. I still enjoy the music and the culture and all that stuff. But it was more along the lines of like, my mom always believed in me and was cool with anything that I did. Um, and perhaps my dad was more into like me wanting to be a professional and that and something like that. But at that point in my life, when I was making that decision, I didn't feel like the expectations were high. Remember, at that point, I'm working over 12 years as a waiter, so in their eyes, I'm already a career waiter. So when I guess the biggest challenge was for me leaving the the island. It's like me moving away. I think that was like the biggest challenge and the biggest thing that got them, because obviously they're going to see me a lot less. But they were always in my case. My family has always been super supportive. My mom has always been great, and she never made me feel like I was anything less than what I was. Um, so she always, said we were great kids. She always, without knowing she was using magic, she was using magic. She was creating, and she always tells her friends, like, even when they piss me off, I always told them that they were good kids. You never tell your child that they're bad, because you know what's going to happen? They're going to be bad. And so that goes back a little bit to what you were saying with the magic. You can't just get anything just poof. There's always a price to pay or a transformation. In fact, when you blend magic and science, you talk about the laws of thermodynamics. Matter cannot be created; it can only be transformed. So in that regard, magic is science and science is magic. In fact, I have this shirt says like magic is science that I'm sorry, science is magic that works. I think that science is magic that has been, figured out in earthly terms. Um, that you can kind of like reproduce a little bit more, but the magic is always there. In fact, the fact that we're filming this and that this is going to get transmitted through some sort of air channel into another antenna that's going to recognize it. Yeah, we can reproduce that, but isn't that magic? Like if you were living like in the Middle Ages and we showed you this, you would say that it's either God's or the work or the devil's work. It's got to be some sort of magical thing, right? So I'm sure that as we continue in our journey of being human beings, we are going to tune in more to those changes, and we actually are. When you talk about the secret, right? Um, my mom loves that book, right? And she quotes it all the time. It's like, and she goes like, "I'm gonna be a millionaire. I'm gonna be a millionaire. I'm gonna be a millionaire." Okay, we're still not millionaires. Um, so I was reading Joe Dispenza, right, and he gave me a kind of got an outlook on that regard with the law of attraction. He says that the mistake a lot of people make is that they get into thoughts. And you get into the thought, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to be a millionaire. But what he says is that thoughts are actually energy that we throw out into the world. So somebody else is going to be a millionaire, right? The way that you actually attract to energy to your field is with feelings and emotion. How you feel is what you attract. So if you're depressed, you're going to attract that negative energy. But if you're accelerated or happy or on purpose, you're going to attract a lot more of that. If you feel safe, That's one of the biggest things for people. It's the safety, like feeling safe. Most of us, most people in the world right now will act pursuing safety. Um, and I think that's what some people in our community take advantage of others, because in pursuing safety, I'll do anything. I'll pick whoever is going to lead me. I'll buy whatever they want me to buy. I'll get into whatever program they want because I want to be safe. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid of the back guy on another country and on another place, or even my neighbor, right? And that's creating such a polarity. It's creating such a division between humanity, that as we start tuning into this and we start tuning into the science, or like science starts kind of connecting with the magical realm, uh, we're going to be able to progress in human evolution. I feel like we're in that kind of part of humanity that we're either going to become machines or we're going to like become human again. Um, I, I'm convinced that at some point, whether it's through the Egyptians or Mayans or Incas or whatever, we lost some sort of technology that was available to us, right? That whether it was through the beliefs of different communities that ended it, we lost a piece of valuable technology or information, right? Yeah. And I think that that technology was going to bring us closer to this magical realm, for lack of a better term. Um, so, in this journey of us connecting to ourselves and looking back into the turning points in life and letting the river takes us, I think that we're going to be able to tune into some of that technology, lost technology. And if we get there, I think we can get to like a even bigger evolution, not the one that's just mechanical. I'm not against mechanical evolution. In fact, I always talk about we live in the future, and I would not go live in another era. Some people say, I want to live in the 70s because the music was better, and I want to go to Woodstock and all this stuff. It's like, dude, like, I want to get a restaurant in Europe and I don't live there. I go on Google and I can get directions to I can look at everything and I can go, and then I go through all the tourist traps and I can get to the best restaurant in there. Obviously, that's something that's valuable to me because I'm a foodie, but the ability to be able to do that, the ability to be able to do this, and communicate this information to people that would not see it anywhere else, that they can see this in China, Japan, it's quite nuts. The fact that my mom can get on a screen and see my baby and have a communication and a relationship. I'll never go back. In fact, I'd rather continue going into the future. But we do need to start understanding that that's part of it, but then we have to continue becoming more human than we've been, because we're switching into, sometimes I call AT&T, for example. I have a huge battle with AT&T. And when I talk to their, and this is not just AT&T, it goes across the board, but you talk to robots. They're people, but you're not in communication. It could be a machine. And in fact, it will be soon. They're going to lose their job. Those people are going to lose their job because all they're doing is they're reading a script and you answer in a particular way, or you ask a question and they have the answer for you, but you can't communicate. There's not a communication really available. So in just a couple of years, the AI is going to do that for them. So like, there's not going to be that communication, but that's going to continue to separate human beings. It's continue creating that polarity. And if we can go back to understanding where we've come from and where we've been and what's available to us, then we can change those feelings and we can change our emotions and we can create the world that we really want to get to. And that's one of my biggest purpose as a chiropractor, as a healer, and as a person in a community, to be able to help people see that and get them perhaps a little closer.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that I really have appreciated about our relationship because as I've explored different modalities outwardly, whether it's the reconnection or, with Tracy and her energy healing, or, some of the ceremonies that I do for any of those, and even going to the Joe Dispenza retreat, when I come back and I'm on your table, because our views are aligned, like you're helping me work with those energies, and like, wow, like you're way up in your upper chakras, like you're way out there and you need to come back down to, and it's really valuable feedback. One of the other things I wanted to point to is, as Einstein says, one of the most important decisions you can make in your life is to decide whether the universe is a friendly place.
Hmm.
And that, for me, I think has been one of the most powerful things, because I never realized that, based on how I grew up when I was younger, I thought that life was dangerous and like needed to stay protected. And the more I focus on cultivating that trust and really building that relationship with the universe as a friendly place, try it on in small ways, then I'm able to rely on myself and listen to those whispers and those small voices and follow my own path, and be able to ask questions and to get feedback from many different places, to be able to see, is what this person's saying really true? Are they trying to sell me something? Well, they might be trying to sell me something, and that's not inherently bad, but is it really what's best for me and where I'm really trying to go? Or do I just kind of fit their demographic and they see an easy sale? And so, you know, I've become happier than I've ever been, and more open than I've ever been, because I'm cultivating that base relationship with the universe, and then going out and re-engaging with things I thought I knew.
Hmm.
I thought I understood how the universe worked. To be willing to let go of those ideas and those beliefs and those things that I was, cultivated, taught into, it really has given me access to being able to have conversations with just about anybody. Because I find some of the worst arguments you can have are with people who really don't understand what they believe or why. They're more interested in protecting against what doesn't seem to fit.
Hmm.
Because it's scary when you get out there beyond what you think you know.
It's uncomfortable.
Right.
There's a couple of things there that's very interesting. That quote by Einstein, perhaps, like, it's a universe a friendly place. I never really asked myself that question, so that's really interesting that you bring that up. And to be honest, I don't know. I don't know if it's a friendly place. I can ask myself is if it's an unfriendly place as well. And again, I don't know. And the important thing is about knowing, and this is something that I always had as a child, and perhaps what brought me into so many other problems, right? I always loved the quote by Socrates, I only know I know nothing.
Mm.
And before I believed it in a different way, and now I believe it in a different way. I still love the quote at this point in my life. I only know I know nothing makes my life so much easier, because this concept of knowing, it's one of the things that brings me into the rigid mindset, and that's what it did originally. Right? Oh, I know that chiropractic works, so that's it. I know that relationships are like this, so that's how I'm going to do relationships. I know that the world is round. I'm not saying it's not. I want to be very clear. I don't believe in the flat Earth theory.
We don't need any haters in the
But
comments.
the truth is, I know nothing. I've never been able to get on a spaceship and go around the Earth, or a boat, right? It makes sense that it's round or oval, because it's not round, it's oval. Um, but the truth is, I don't know. I'm based on the experience of other people that have done the work for me, and trace the path for me to know, so, just like Einstein did, right? But knowing, it's such a strong word. It's something that very easily can lead you down the path of, downfall. So the word, I'm trying to look for what a word would be. Nothing's coming up right now. Maybe later, but it's the releasing of that knowingness. I think that's because that's knowledge. I think that's perhaps I'm asking, perhaps is the gap between knowledge and wisdom.
Mm.
Like I feel like perhaps when we get to the wisdom part of it, is when we relinquish the need to know,
Mm-hmm.
and we can actually just see everything from the outside and say, "All right, take me.
Yeah.
Let me trust the path that I have set upon myself with the knowledge and the information that I have gained so far to be able to go into." So that's a cool quote. It made me kind of think a little bit. So that's why I went down that kind of tangent a little bit.
I think what you're pointing to is fantastic because Einstein is the one who upended science as we know it. Like
Uh,
Newtonian
it's
physics,
the authority, right?
you know, and what you've been pointing to off and on throughout the conversation, especially when you compare magic and science, if I leave no room for evolution, for understanding that this is what I know based on what we've proven so far, all of it being limited, then if I put a fork in it, pour cement around it, I'm not able to really flow with the conversation. But if I function with it in a useful context and I'm able to leverage it from where I am, I mean, cell technology, internet technology, camera, microphone, lights, all of the things that we're using, like you say, to transmit this, 20, 30, 50 years, it might look completely different. And we might understand it on a totally different level. And they will be laughing at us for engaging in this way.
These primitive people.
I'll take it all day long, though, because, I'm excited to be where we are. I went to Ireland recently, and it's like I get off the plane, I'm standing at the bus stop with my phone, and it's telling me exactly how I need to get. Most people wouldn't be able to have the experience that 50 years ago, they couldn't have the experience that I did because I can tour the entire country with, just this little piece of technology. It's extraordinary. And I think also what you're pointing to, Einstein didn't say, "Do you know if the universe is friendly or not?"
Hmm.
What he said was, "Are you choosing to engage with it
Hmm.
as if it's friendly or unfriendly?"
Hmm.
And it creates an entirely different dynamic because if I'm engaging with the universe as if it's unfriendly, then I'm going to be closed. I'm going to be protected and I'm going to be on the lookout and I'm not going to say hi to people and my heart's not going to be open.
Yeah.
Whereas if I choose the universe is friendly, it's not malicious overall, I believe that, yeah, sure, there are people who are doing stuff. That's their bag. My Facebook feed looks a lot different. My YouTube feed looks a lot different than most other people. The world is not on fire for me.
Hmm.
I mean, I can see the reasons why somebody might think that, and I can appreciate that there are things to maybe be concerned about or look into. But like I'm not running for the hills thinking that everything is doomed and we're, in the middle of the apocalypse, precisely because the universe is a friendly place. In Buddhism, we say great evil precedes great good. Okay, great. So if there's something messed up going on, that means there's going to be something awesome coming next. It's all like winter always precedes spring. So if we're in winter, that means the cherry blossoms are coming soon. So why worry?
Hmm. Yeah. And worry is one of those things that brings you back down to that place.
Exactly.
And very often when we look at, like, when we're, I think you mentioned trouble, looking for the proof, right? Looking for the proof of things, right? And we don't realize is that proof is limited by our senses. It's limited by our ability to view the universe, right? And in quantum physics, they really talk about that. There's a lot of different ways that you can view the universe, and we are limited by our sight, by our taste, by our touch, by the way that we really can see. Right, a person that's colorblind is going to see it differently. Right, even it's a matter of, of perspective. Right, it's a matter of perspective. Like the person that sees that in a particular way because they were raised in a particular way are going to see the same event as something completely different. And that happens with me and my mom. She grew up in a different way, and she perhaps worries a little bit more. My sister worries. They're I think I see them as a big warriors. They're not the big warriors, but they're like very structured with their things, and they're like always thinking ahead what's going to happen. And I've relinquished that part of myself a lot, because I've realized that worrying about it, and in Spanish it translates a little better. It says preocuparse, preoccupy yourselves, right? When when you're preoccupying yourself, you're occupying yourself before you have to occupy yourself, and then you post occupy yourself with what you preoccupy yourself with. So
Yes.
you're always worried because there's always going to be the next thing, and you're prepping for the next event, the next challenge, the next hurricane. Like I think it's so funny how, and I know that there was a big hurricane that devastated a lot of people, and my thoughts to everybody that lost everything. I've gone through hurricanes in my life as well, so I know how hard that can be. But the worry, there's a little depression, and they're already sending texts. So there's a depression, it's coming in here, it's getting in through there. They project that this is going to be like this, is going to be like that. When I talked to my dad after this last storm, he said, oh no, I talked to my friend who's I'm sorry, what's that called? A
Meteorologist?
meteorologist. His friend is a meteorologist, and he said I talked to my friend who's a meteorologist, and he told me that for sure you're gonna get flooded. It's not a question. It's happening. So go get sandbags, prep yourself. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I know nothing's gonna happen. That being said, I'm gonna prepare. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen to what he said. Perhaps if I didn't go get the sandbags to put in my house, the hurricane would have turned and devastated us. I don't know. The truth is, I don't know. But when that message comes, I make that decision. And what everything in my being was telling me, bro, nothing's happening. You're gonna be fine. You're not even gonna lose power. And what I chose to do is let me go get the sandbags. Got the sandbags. It wasn't that big of a deal. Prep myself for it. I moved all my plants inside of my office. It was a lot of work. And I'm grateful that I did it because nothing happened. Again, sorry for the people that have had those devastations because I know it's horrible, but that could have happened to me. Right. So, in that regard, their worry or their preoccupying themselves with it led me to occupy myself with it, which perhaps created the environment to not have to deal with it. I don't know. I don't know. But I like to believe that it's the correct path. That it's like, if I'm just always worried about it, I'm going to pull that hurricane towards me. Right. And if I just, whatever, it's going to catch me without anything. So, you kind of have to play that role of, yeah, it's a little bit of this and it's a little bit of that. And you're always kind of bobbing and weaving and bobbing because going back to the friendliness and unfriendliness, right? And again, I'm trying to process this as we talk about it because this is the first time that I heard that quote.
That's
So
cool. I can't
I'm
wait to
trying
hear
to
what you
figure
think
it
about
out.
it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. After I think about it a lot. To me, the universe is neither. You
Yes.
see, to me, the universe is neither friendly or unfriendly. It just is.
I think that's probably a more appropriate context of what Einstein is saying. He's like, people are you're fighting against something that doesn't have it in for you.
It doesn't have it. It doesn't have that characteristic. That's a human characteristic that you're
Right.
applying. And I mean, we could go into the multiverse of we're all the same thing and the nothing and the quantum physics of it. Absolutely, I believe that there's a lot of that. We could be a hair in a giant, ginormous being. I don't know, right? Um, but as I travel my experience, as I travel what my sensors perceive and the reality of what I am, because we're such a small speck in the grand scheme of things. At the end of the day, we're such a small speck that making our reality way bigger than the rest of the universe, it's conceited. It doesn't make any sense, right? But we can also say that we do have a part in it,
Yes.
that there's a purpose and a reason and a fact for us living this reality in it, and then we can just kind of maneuver through that. Obviously, perceiving the universe as friendly is definitely a way better way to do it,
I agree.
because like if you're seeing it as unfriendly, you're only pulling that negative, you're pulling that hurricane back at you, instead of like saying the hurricane is just a way that the world cleans itself,
Yeah.
because that's what it is, right? That's what hurricanes do. The natural progress of the body of the world just shifting and moving, right? We used to be Pangea back in the day. Pangea is how you pronounce it. This was like one world, and then earthquakes separated everything and broke it down apart. And obviously, earthquakes and these natural disasters are hard on human beings because we've created a society on top of this body.
Right.
I hope that scientists and world leaders and the gazillionaires, the one percenters, start understanding this. I'm sure they do, because you don't get to be there if you don't understand this. But try to use it to the benefit of humanity, because I'm convinced that there's a lot of different ways to build our communities that are going to be more conducive to being in unison with the environment. That these environmental factors that happen in such a natural process, we need to build around that. And we need to build around nature, right? We shouldn't continue to build to our own likes and just to continue moving the economy into the wrong direction that it's going to, obviously. If we can start kind of creating a world where we work together with the world, with animals, with all the beings that are here, I feel that it's going to be a more friendly world, therefore a more friendly universe, and perhaps we can go into space and connect to other beings beyond that, if they exist or whatever it is. I mean, I don't believe or disbelieve. Makes sense that there's aliens out there, but I've never seen one, so I cannot say that I believe it. It makes sense,
Yes.
but I'm not gonna, just take it on face value. I want to see that it is.
I think that's absolutely true. And it sounds like we could probably go down a whole
Oh,
bunch
that's
of
a whole
rabbit
rabbit hole.
trails. Well, wow, fantastic conversation. At this stage, what I'd like to ask is, after all of the wild places that we have been, is there a final thought that you'd like to leave people with? Something that maybe we have touched on that you'd like to reiterate, or something that you wanted to fit in and think now would be a good time?
Well, there was something I kind of wanted to fit in, so I'll go into that regard, and I won't like spend a lot of time on it, but we'll kind of make it into a little bit of a closing point, which is where chiropractic really helps, right? And there's a lot of misconception when it comes to chiropractic, and we talked about a lot of the difference that we do in our office and how we tune into the chakras and all that stuff. But the biggest issue that chiropractic encounters right now is that people see it as a neck pain, low back pain, headaches type of thing, right? I have a pain, I go, they crack it, feels better, I go away, right? But that couldn't be furthest from the truth, because yes, chiropractic helps in all those regards. But the reason why it helps is because we are helping the innate intelligence of the body. There's an innate intelligence, there's an innate wisdom of the body that regulates all the functions for us. So, as we maneuver through everything we've talked about today, perception, depressions, preoccupying ourselves, letting the river take us, all these conversation, friendly, unfriendliness, the innate intelligence of the body is always 100%. So our ability to tune in to our own innate intelligence gives us the tool to connect to that magic, to connect to our perceptions, to connect to the science. It's there. The issue that we've had, like I said a little bit before, is because we're getting disconnected from that by the discoveries that we've had and the beliefs that we've had so far, which actually helped us get here. So I don't regret none of those things. Now, the biggest turning point in my life, after I've said all the other ones, is the understanding of innate intelligence. Once I understood that there's an innate wisdom in my body that's talking to your innate wisdom, and they're separate but together and part of the same source of the earth and the universe and the multiverse and and quantum, then I can say, okay, how do I affect the world? Well, by connecting to my innate intelligence, because it will always lead me in the right way. Once I'm connected to my innate intelligence, I can actually see things clearer, connect with the field, and understand the things that I need. It's not that I just get adjusted. I get adjusted frequently, and I'm tuning into my innate intelligence, but I do a lot of other things for my health, right? I do cold plunging, I do saunas, I exercise, I eat healthy. There's a lot of things that you got to do for your health, right? But the one ingredient that has made the difference for me to stay with that is tuning into my innate intelligence. And when I'm out of balance, when I notice that I'm not there 100%, that's the first thing that I do. I try to say, okay, where am I tuning out? All right, oh, I haven't gotten adjusted. Well, let me get adjusted. Boom. Now, how am I feeling? Okay, now that's waking me up to the fact that I've been eating too much pork or too much pizza. Well, let me kind of slow down for that a little bit. And if more of us can get to that understanding of innate intelligence, and that connecting to that innate intelligence can actually help me share with other people innate intelligence, we're going to tune into the intelligence of the world, which therefore the intelligence of the universe. And I mean, the rest is like completely possible. The realm of possibility opens up for us, and we can actually really like engage in our purpose and who we want to become.
It's a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
You're very welcome. So thank you for an amazing conversation. I'm really glad we finally got to do this because we've tried a couple of times. And yeah, I'm super excited to see how people receive the information.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for having me. I know that, yeah, we've been trying to make this happen for a while. We're always so super busy, but we were able to get it done. So I'm super grateful for you having me in your space. I wish the channel all the best. To our audience, make sure you subscribe, like, and follow so that you can continue getting this wonderful content. I want to congratulate you for all your success with it.
Thank you.
And again, the sky's the limit.
Appreciate that.
Or no, I guess there's no limits, right?
There are no limits.
There are no limits.
There are no limits. Beautiful. All right, great. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of The Secret of My Success, where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling life. Again, I am your host, Erin Curran. If you have not already, please subscribe to our channel. And if you enjoyed the episode, please give it a like. Feel free to share it with your friends so that we can get messages like this out to the world. Also, feel free to leave a comment for us. Let us know what you enjoyed, what you thought, and what are your opinions on some of the topics that we discussed. I look forward to hearing from you.